Hello there everyone. So, kicking this off good and proper with another sort of process style video. I did say I was going to do this and I figured sooner rather than later would probably be the best. So, what we're going to look at today is body shapes, and this was a request by Ollie Spill, not Ollie Spills like I said in the last video. Honest mistake, I assume. I mean, it has been a month. But anyway, they wanted to look at body construction. They typically, well actually they wanted to look at tall and lanky, which you can hopefully see me indicating here. This is obviously not the best example I could show, and I'm probably going to do just an extra quick little one at the end. But basically, the rundown of this video is going to be, I'm going to lower the opacity on all of these guys by about 50%. We're going to get rid of me, and we are going to reconstruct them sort of one by one and show off the basic shapes, and hopefully that will help sort of indicate and illustrate, you know, basic construction methods for these kinds of characters and these kinds of body shapes and stuff like that. Obviously I've gone ahead and done a sort of wide range. I've done like the most typical ones you'd expect, like, you know, short, round, tall, lanky, big, muscular for both genders. So let's get round to actually reconstructing these. Just gotta shrink my brush. And yeah, this is like one of those weird times where I've actually been weirdly prepared and I actually sat down and did this ahead of time. So anyway, what we're going to focus on right now is this guy, is the short round guy. So you can already kind of like, this one is actually fairly self-explanatory. You know, you've got your basic kind of egg shape going on here for a body, you know, and that's fairly easy to get going. You've got like a sort of just basic round circle for a head. Let me just try and see if I can get this going on pretty well. There we go, that's good enough. And then obviously you can't ignore the fact that even short round people have necks, so that's kind of what this bit here is. Obviously I'm not doing the best job of illustrating this because the circle's off kilter, so let's just try that again. There we go. So yeah, this is actually a neck portion, and it's not exactly like immediately off the shoulders or anything like that because we haven't actually put the shoulders on yet. So typically when I build shoulders, I like to just draw circles where I think the shoulder's going to be, and typically you're going to want to put them as like not so much as close to the neck as possible, because obviously let's say here's a neck, you've actually got a little bit of like shoulder meat before you actually get to the shoulders proper, if that makes any sense. You know, this is more or less torso area and then you've got shoulders, so you don't want to put them like right up against the neck, but in some circumstances it's actually alright. That is not the eraser I wanted. What's going on there? Where is my eraser brush gone? That is so weird. There we go, that should work. There we go, yeah, that works. Okay, yeah, so in some circumstances it actually works okay to do it like this. Just going to shrink the brush a little bit, just a bit more. So don't worry too hard about shoulder placement unless you're like really trying. Like this here, I'm just going to skip ahead here. This bit here is actually more to do with perspective than it is anything, because you will notice that like there is still some shoulder meat here, and then there's a shoulder. So, you know, it's circumstantial whether or not you put them close to the neck or not sometimes, but don't worry too hard about it, especially when you're literally just doing this as a cartoonist. So the arm doesn't necessarily have to be segmented, but I have drawn it as such. So like this would be round about where the elbow joint would be, and then obviously you've got a wrist here and then just a simple hand. Typically when it comes to hands, you want them roughly about the same size as the face. You know, that old trick that people used to pull, like, oh, put your hand on your face so you can smack it into people, but like that is actually legitimate. Like your hand is usually the same size as your face, so that is actually a thing. I'm just going to very quickly scribble on that hand as well. And then the legs, typically I like to give them a bit of a bend. It sort of helps sell weight, even with like taller characters that you wouldn't expect to have that, like taller and lankier and skinnier characters that you wouldn't expect to have that much more weight. It's actually a fairly good way to sort of sell an actual kind of body mass sort of look to it. And obviously these are where the legs would bend as well. And then we have feet, and it's all very just simple shape construction. You know, we've not deviated too far from the sort of typical mantra of the channel so far, which is play with shapes. So, you know, you've got your circle, your kind of egg, you've got your tubes, and that's all there is to it. Like that's all basic body construction is. And when it comes to lanky characters like this, it's literally just a kind of messed up rectangle, as you can sort of see there. Obviously I've also drawn, I should probably mention that I've drawn construction lines on the torsos themselves, just so you can sort of get a clear indication of where things are facing. And obviously this line here, this central one, probably can't even see me pointing at this one here, is actually more of an indication of where the groin region starts, or the hip, I should say. So this is actually the hip section of this character, whereas this one is more or less the hip section. So this is all torso up here. Hopefully you can see me indicating that. And this is hip section, so you know where roughly the legs are supposed to join up on this. And again, it's basically just sort of bendy looking tubes. Like, this is very like, if you ever look up, actually, behind the scenes footage of Simpson animators or Futurama animators, they will typically also do this, and this is actually where I picked up this habit of just drawing bendy tubes for legs, and they will actually just call them tubes when they're constructing the characters. So obviously we've again got a shoulder joint there, we've got this, and then this is where the elbow goes, and then we've got a wrist and a hand, and then we've also got it here, but like I said, we've got a little bit of shoulder meat between there and the neck, and the neck is again just another tube. Like, it's super easy when you sort of just break individual components down into basic shapes. Again, like I keep saying it, but it is literally how I work, so I can't sort of make up anything else other than that. And we're just going to add like a little bit there to sort of indicate that there's a neck there. So you can kind of see where I'm going with all of this, but now is the arguably harder stuff, because I'm actually not as good at like musculature and like bodybuilder shapes, and these are very bodybuilder typical shapes. Like, they're actually a little bit more broad than a regular bodybuilder would be. This is actually kind of a subtle mix between bodybuilder and like World's Strongest Man, heavy set kind of build. That's actually a more practical muscle man kind of build, where you're actually building the muscle mass to actually do stuff with the muscles as opposed to just showing off and looking greasy. So yeah. So when it comes to muscle man builds, it's actually, like I said, a little bit more involved. You have to sort of segment the torso. So this is like the chest section, which has a little bit more definition for its shoulder meat going on here, and obviously like the shoulders are a lot bigger, and it leads into like more defined arm tubes. And you sort of have to, like I said, when you're drawing like muscular characters, you sort of have to segment them a little bit more. So, you know, that's all going on there, and then you've got your head, and then your neck is like a whole shape on its own. It's kind of like a dumpy Coke can sort of shape. It's really, like, again, like I have mentioned this, but I actually see a lot of things as shapes, so, but I don't have really very good names for those shapes. You have to sort of separate the groin section out as well, and the legs have like more definition just to sort of show off the musculature. So this is like how you would kind of draw a cartoon calf, I guess. You just sort of segment them off. Like, it's the same principles, it's just a little bit more involved when you're drawing muscular people. Now we're going to move on to some more like feminine kind of shapes. So this here is my interpretation of the pear-shaped kind of thing. So to very quickly just illustrate a pear, that's a pear. Like, we all know what pears look like, but you know, that's just to sort of show you what I mean by this. So how I do this is I start off with one circle here, and then I draw another sort of wider circle underneath it, and then I join them up like that. Like, there's a little bit more to it than that, but like, this is basics sort of thing. And you know, that's kind of a pear shape. It's a very exaggerated pear shape. It's actually sort of a subtle mix between a pear and kind of an hourglass. And then we add a breast right there. Yes, I said breast, get over it. And then we've got some shoulders. And then again, it's just arm tubes with a wrist and a join and another thing there. And then when it comes to their legs, they're actually less apart than men's legs are. Obviously that's down to like genital differences. Again, yes, I said genitals, get over it. You know, men have a thing swinging between their legs, so they need a little bit more space there, but women don't typically have it. Like, you've obviously heard of like thigh gaps, and obviously we're going to touch on that later on with this other one next to her. But typically most women don't actually have that. It's it's kind of more an anomaly more than it is the rule. So you can kind of see where I'm coming from here with like the sort of pear shape. Like overall, this is a pear shape. It's more like an egg or a triangle, like a rounded triangle, but obviously more exaggerated to show off like feminine features, like the wider hips. I think they have longer rib cages as well, but I'm not again sure. Like I said, I'm not the be-all end-all source of anatomy. Like I've mostly done all of this from guesswork, and it seems to work well for me. No one's over the top, like gone over the top and sort of corrected me yet. I'm sure there are plenty of people who wish they had, and I'm sure after this video goes live, loads of people are going to come out of the woodwork to do so. But yeah, like I said, like when it comes to being a cartoonist though, you don't have to focus too hard on anatomy. As long as you get the basics right, it's fine. So yeah, this kind of like body build for a woman is, again, it's kind of like the muscle man thing. You have to sort of more segment it, and it kind of ends up looking like a what you call it, an artist mannequin sort of thing. I had a really hard time remembering that just then. But obviously, if you haven't seen an artist mannequin before, it's literally like a little wooden dummy that's usually no bigger than about 30 centimeters or so, and I mean, you can get larger ones, obviously, but the ones I've seen are typically no bigger than a typical ruler. But yeah, and they're usually built like this. Obviously, they got like more ball jointed stuff going on here and here and here and stuff like that. But you can easily ignore that. One rule when drawing breasts on a woman as well is typically they don't just stand up like that, and they've actually done it fairly wrong on this one. Like, you actually want to kind of imply a little bit of gravity there. So that looks a little bit better, but it's obviously still not great. It's probably a little too large for the kind of body shape I've done, although it's fairly proportional now I'm looking at it. And yeah, we're just going to carry on putting together stuff like that. I mean, you can draw like more perky and rounded stuff like that if you want to, if that's your style, but just be prepared for plenty of people to come out and go, look, boobs don't work that way, you've clearly never seen them. That sort of thing is fairly common in the art world. But you know, it's something to consider. Like, you have to in order to sell a thing, you need to remember that gravity is a constant no matter what world you're living in. Like, construction methods are largely the same no matter what you're looking at. So yeah, they muscular women. In terms of like breasts for larger women, obviously everyone knows that breasts are made of like fatty tissue and stuff like that, and you know, bodybuilders typically are trying to limit the amount of like fat content in their bodies, so typically breasts will shrink. But also, where they are developing muscle from that, the skin will also have constricted, and it will have given them more of like a tighter, perkier look. This is honestly the most risque video I think I'm ever going to put out because of all of this talk about boobs. But anyway, you kind of know where I'm coming from. Like, it's not something you'll typically go looking for, but if you ever see like images of female bodybuilders, you'll know what I'm talking about when you see it. But yeah, it's a thing to consider. Like, obviously, how muscular a character is will reflect how much like their body droops and sags, and how, like, you know, going back to this again, sorry, I don't mean to distract myself, but you see how this lanky character here isn't exactly like the bastion of good shape, but then you've got the muscular guy who's actually got his spine sort of curving the right way. He's not hunched. He's, you know, he's clearly built himself to actually be able to sustain his own weight, whereas this guy just doesn't really care that much. You know, it's that kind of thing that you have to do to sort of sell the shape that you're drawing. So we've got another sort of hip section. Don't forget to sort of draw in a butt there. Obviously, don't forget to draw butts on dudes as well, but I very rarely ever do, because, you know, I actually just enjoy drawing women more than men, so I tend to ignore those details whenever I'm drawing dudes. And yeah, it's all basically obeying the same rules. You just have to remember that women have a very different shape underneath all of it. I would argue that they actually have a stronger shape for bodybuilding than men do. I'm not sure if I'm going to catch any flack for saying that, but you know, they are effectively, like, let me just very quickly put up another layer so I can sort of actually show you what I mean by this. They are effectively triangles stacked on top of each other, you know? And obviously triangles being the sturdiest shape, that means they're probably better built for being strong and carrying that muscle and all that sort of stuff. So obviously, like I said, I'm probably going to catch some flack for saying that, but that's just a personal sort of observation I've made. Why has my brush changed colour? Why is that a thing that's happened? Well, I can't seem to fix it, so we're just going to have to go with it. Unless I'm drawing on the wrong layer. No? Weird. Okay. Just ignore that then. My brush is now a lighter shade of blue than it was before. And obviously you've got to remember to draw the calves. I've obviously done them a little too thick down here, but easily fixed. Again, we're not really regimented by what we've done underneath, it's more or less what we do on top that actually makes any kind of a difference. And there you go, that is a muscular woman build. I'm just going to draw my little torso lines and stuff all over these, just so you get like a kind of indication of which way they're facing. But yeah, like, that is overall body construction. And again, I keep harping on about it, but it is literally just take a thing and deconstruct it and put it into shapes and figure out what those shapes are and how to put them together. It's kind of a process. See what I did there? But you know, it's a lengthy one. It's something you have to train your mind to do, and it takes a little while. Like I said, I've been doing this for years and I can't not see shapes in things now, so it's a learned behavior. But you do get a hang of it after a while, and it becomes way easier to do the more you do it. Like everything, it's literally practice. So, you know, building bodies is eventually nothing. You know, like constructing the body is actually the easiest part of drawing them. It's the details that go on top afterwards that become the process. And you know, drawing these only took me about 15 minutes, all of them, altogether 15 minutes. You know, and I was listening to Powerwolf at the same time, so it's like I wasn't really even paying attention when I was doing it. I was too busy singing about God and werewolves. But you know, it's harder to explain than it is to actually do, which is the great thing about it. Like, if you guys go ahead and sort of, you know, screen cap this video, you know, like, I'll try and get you a nice clear image of it, but like, screen cap this and then just use that as a guide and just practice with it. You know, there's nothing stopping you from doing that. I actually actively encourage it. And if you do end up doing that, by all means, tweet me the finished image of your practice, you know? Just, you know, I've always got my Twitter linked at the end of the videos. Like I said, just tweet me, or, you know, send me a message on here, I guess. But I'll be really eager to see what you guys do with this. And, you know, even just go ham with it, do details, go, you know, full inks on it if you want to. I'm actually super jazzed to see if that actually happens. So again, I just hope this helped. I'm sort of rambling a little bit here, so I'm going to try and wrap this up as quick as I can. If you want any like extra info that I can potentially give you, then don't be afraid to ask. I'll happily try and help wherever I can. And this has been this. I've been me, you've been you. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. See you around.